List. The next topic we are going to analyze now is all about list, which is also a part of a data structure. Lists are one of the most common organizing tools people use in our day-to-day lives. We have to do to-do lists for groceries, for top 10 lists, say bottom 10 lists, and many other types. So that is nothing but a part of a data structure only, where we list down whatever we needed, or it is like list down whatever, it's like do's and don'ts kind of thinking, and you list it down and accordingly you plan it. So that is the way data structure also works with this concept, which is called as a list. Our computer programs can also use lists, particularly if we only have few items in store. Say for example, list item. Lists are especially useful if we don't have to perform searches on the items in the list or put them into some type of a sorted order. When we need to perform long searches or complex sorts, such kind of thing, list becomes less useful, especially with more complex data structures. So in this chapter, we will be focusing on a simple creation of a list class. We start with the definition, first of all, like understanding what is list. So list is nothing but an ordered sequence of a data. Each data item stored in list is called as an element. So it is like referred to as an element, whatever the items which are stored in the list. There are no predefined number of elements, so there is nothing but like predefined number, like list should have only this set of predefined items in it. There is nothing like that. List with no elements is referred as the empty list. Other thing, it is also called as the ADT. A list is also as a list abstract definition type. So it is an abstract definition type because we focus on the completion of how many items are there in the list and how to manipulate those particular items in it. The number of elements which are stored in the list are also fetched with the help of length of the particular list, like we can get with the help of length parameter. Internally, the number of elements in the list is kept in list size variable. You can append them, you can insert an element, or you can remove a particular element in the given list. So elements of a list are displayed to a particular person with the help of toString for JavaScript functionality, because as we have the list function is not that easily depictable to the layman user. So that is why we use a JavaScript function, that is toString, to show a particular variable in the form of a string format. So now we'll move to our code base. In our code base, we first of all create an HTML file, and then after the HTML file, we create a .js file, which is the associated list.js file, and we will check the output in our console. Starting with our code base, so this is our code base. I'll just remove the extra additional files that we worked in our last chapter. Now I'll create a new folder. So that folder will be inside JavaScript structure. So I'll create a new folder over here, and the name of the folder will be list, as we did for arrays. So same I'll follow over here. Now inside list, I'll create a new file, and the name of the file will be the first list. So I'll just mention as list.html. Now inside list.html, I will mention the doc type. So I'll say doc type HTML. I'll complete this. After that, I'll start with HTML tag. This will be the normal HTML page, so we'll follow the same standards. We'll have head. Inside head, I'll call for title. The title will call for, say, this is the list example with JavaScript, because we are focusing on JavaScript implementation on each and every data structure. After title comes the next part is the meta char. Meta should be present before title actually. Meta cassette UTF-8. This is my cassette. So I mentioned my cassette. Now after the head tag comes the body tag. So I'll mention the body tag. Inside body, I'll call for a specific JavaScript. So that will be mentioned as script. I'll mention the type as type equal to src. It will be text. It will be mentioned as text. Text JavaScript. This is my first type, and after that I'll mention the source code that is given by SRC as a particular source code. So my source code will be in, say, file name list.js. So I'll complete the script tag. So my body tag is finished. I can also give the h2 tag saying this is list illustration. Okay. So now after creating the HTML file, the next section I need to do is to create my JS file, which is the important file. So I'll just name it as list.js, the way we did it. So inside list.js, first of all, I'll create a function which will focus on creation of list. So my function name will be called as the function list. So I'll say function and the name will be list. Okay. Now inside this function, I will include all the parameters which are needed, like for retrieval of the values, or say to append a particular value, or to remove a value, or fetching up the length of the list. So we have a number of parameters. So we'll start with this function. Inside this, first of all, I'll define the list size. So I'll say this dot list size will be 0. So this will be my first parameter. And after this, so I've given my first parameter. After that comes this dot position. So I'll say POS as 0. After that comes this dot data store. I'll mention the data store. So data store is a blank array. So data store is nothing but initializing a array to store list element. So I'll just mention this in comment. So this initializes the array in store list elements. Okay. So after this comes toString character. So I'll say this dot toString will be given as toString. Then comes this dot append will be given as append. This dot remove will give the parameter remove. And next, last but not the least, is to fetch the length value. So I'll say length. So I've given all the parameters. Now I need to just create the functions for length, appending, as well as for removing. There is also a function for retrieving and everything, but I will just include the basic functions, say for length of the particular list. Like we have to fetch the length of the list. So length of the list can be fetched with the help of this function. So my function name will be function length. Inside length, I will not give any parameter. My list will call for length function and it should return the list size. As I mentioned earlier, like all the parameters are fetched with the list size, especially the length parameter. So I'll just say list size. This dot list size will return the length of the particular list. After that comes appending the element. Appending the element. So appending the element is done as function append, and then comes element. So here I'll pass the parameter as element. Now inside element, I'll call for a data store. So I'll say this dot data store, because that is the one which initializes the empty store. This dot data store, and inside that I'll take the parameter as this dot list size, and I will append it in the last section. So that will be plus plus with the increment value, and my element will be appended over here. Okay. So this was the understanding for the functionality of append. So now what we need to do is we need to create a toString character. So toString will be mentioned as function toString. Inside toString, we can mention with returning the data store parameter. So I'll just mention this dot data store. So whenever we get a list, it will be fetched in the string format and will be given to the end user in that particular format. So now after creating the list of functions, the next section we need to do is to create a variable, say names, and my names will be new list. Because I call for my function list, so that will be my new list. And my names will append for these values. So I'll call for this append parameter, append. The names will be, say, Cynthia. Okay. I'll just copy paste this particular sentence because I'm going to append even more values, say Raymond. This is also one more value. After that comes the next values, say Parker. So these were some of the values which I'm adding. So my list should appear in this particular format. Like first value should be Cynthia, second is Raymond, and after that comes Parker. And after that you will say console.log names. And after specifying the names, you need to print it. So this will print first parameter, will print only my list. The next parameter which I'm giving right now is console.log names.toString. ToString. So this will print all your string like list in the format of string. Okay. So now we need to check in our browser like what kind of output we are getting. So let's move to our browser. So this is our browser section. So we already had a reference with arrays. Now moving on to the next, that is list. So list here I'll call for list.html. So this was the h2 tag statement which we mentioned that this is the list illustration. Now here you can see the first console was to printing the values as a list. So it is printing with all the parameters, say append, data store, length, list size, position, remove, various set of the parameters are included over here. Whereas when it comes to this like producing ToString kind of a parameter for the particular list section, now inside here you can see that all the parameters are listed properly in the systematic manner. Like first my list was appended with Cynthia, which was my first append value. After that I gave Raymond and then came Parker. So in this way list value depicts like a perfect scenario of how to list a particular element in a brilliant way. Now we did that. Now the next parameter we need to check is for length. We already had a function for length. So moving to our code base. So here for calling up the length, say for example, I'll print a console. So my console will be console.log and it will print the value, the length of the given list, and it will print the value for length as names dot length. It will call for length function with quotes because length function will automatically give you the data storage whatever it is present in it. Now let's go to our browser and check whether the value I'm getting is right or not. So as my list consists of 3 values, so the length of the given list is 3. See, in this way the 3 parameters successfully is retrieved, which means that my list value is for 3 values, 3 parameters in it. So this was about creating a particular list. You can also clear a list. So let's create a function for clearing up the list. So for clearing the list will be given over here. So this is my code. So inside this I'll create a function for clearing list, say function, and the name of the function is clear. And inside clear I'll say delete this dot data store. Okay, so it will remove all the data store. This dot data store will be again given with an empty array value the way we did it, and after that my list size will be according to the position, so that is nothing but 0. So now if I will call for a function, say clear function for names.clear, then automatically it will clear all the values over here. You just need to say names.clear. So in that scenario, whatever the list value was there, it will be truncated or removed permanently If you want to create it again, you need to append the values again. So this was all about understanding the basic functionality of list.